succulent people, welcome and thank you so much for stopping by. We are going to do a good old-fashioned plant chores video today, and honestly in the past I've avoided these videos because it is just too hard for me to like move around and also try to film at the same time. However, this new mic allows me to move away from where the mic would normally be positioned. So I feel like that is going to help me not dislike these quite as much, because I really enjoy watching them, and in theory I enjoy making them, but then when the reality comes to be, like when I'm filming it and I have to stay attached to where this mic is, it's just not easy. It's not easy whilst doing chores. I don't know exactly what we're gonna be doing today. I think it'll just be today of plant chores and not multiple days, but we'll see how far we get today. I know for sure I need to do some watering. So I do have my handy dandy electric watering sprayer thingy here. And then I want to spray my hanging Hoya that are like up here with sulfur. I've recently done a total sulfur treatment on all of my Hoyas that I have on my Hoya shelf, and because they're all together over there. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and knock these out. And I was kind of like debating on whether or not I wanted to do the hanging Hoya. I think the ones that I have hanging in my French doors, I'm gonna leave alone because they show no signs of any type of pest or damage or anything. And they're hanging in macrame hangers. And if you have a trailing Hoya hanging in a macrame hanger, you know what a pain in the rear it is to untangle all those vines and get it in and out of that thing. So that's not in the cards for me today, because I recently took those out and did a treatment of the Bonide systemic granules, and I also put some Osmocote in there just to kind of touch them up, sprayed them down, did a good flush through, which I don't typically do because it's so hard to get them out of the hangers. But I literally just did that like last week, so I am not in the mental space to go through taking them out of those hangers again. However, the ones that I have hanging up here, I could definitely feasibly do. They are not really showing any like alarming signs of needing to be treated with sulfur. However, as I've stated in previous videos, I like to just be proactive. And sometimes I feel like doing like 1 or 2 sulfur treatments a year just kind of works for me and like my routine to keep on top of the flat mites, because flat mites, just like the idea of flat mites really freaks me out. Because you know what I need to get? I need to get one of those freaking microscopes that I've seen people using so I can check for them. I feel like that would be peace of mind for me, because I'm just like, every time I look at a Hoya or even anthurium sometimes and there's like damage or something weird going on, I'm like, flat mites. So anyways, if having like a chill hangout plant chores session sounds good to you, then let's get into it. First of all, I have been a bad plant parrot the last couple of days because I was supposed to water my anthurium specifically. I like to check those every single day and make sure that nobody needs to be watered, because you really do not want your anthurium drying out too much. They do not like that. They like being moist and comfortable in that moist substrate. And I have not done that last 2 days. So I know there's a lot of anthurium that need to be watered. I use different nutrient type solutions, but today I just have CalMag in there. I have got a little bit of silica, and I have got some of the root fertilizer and clean kelp seaweed fertilizer. I do not feel like these are probably necessary. I do use the Alaskan fish fertilizer sometimes too. I think it's just like a good microbe, like organic type, I don't know, stuff to add to the soil that seems beneficial. The plants seem to like it, even if it is a little bit stinky. So I like to just switch things up and add like something different now and then. I said before, it's like the more variety I feel like I include, the better I feel. Does that have any practical evidence? No. No, it doesn't. Because I feel like I've just gotten into a routine where I feel like I've seen a lot of growth, like the benefit of a lot of growth from what I've been doing. So I don't know. I've seen people who have been growing anthurium for way longer than me use less stuff, use more stuff, have different routines. Everybody has their own routine. You know, there are like some general things that everybody uses, like silica is really common, CalMag is really common, etc. But honestly, I'm still kind of like experimenting a little bit. This is just what works for me right now. So that is what we have in the electric water thing today, the sprayer. So I'm just gonna kind of go through, and anybody that needs water, I'm gonna spray them down, and I'll just kind of touch on if I see anything cool looking with you guys. I'm also actually probably gonna be moving some of these into my bins. What I like to do is if I get a plant, and this is a new plant, right? Like it just got mailed to me, I just opened the box. If it has a good root system, like some good, big, thick, chunky roots that I know are probably gonna grow, what I'll do is I always immediately repot to see if I need to cut it or I need to trim some rot off or anything like that, and just like assess the situation with the roots to determine whether or not it needs to go in a prop bin or if I can just go ahead and put it in ambient and see how it does. So for a lot of the ones that are out here right now, for the new ones, they've gone through a period of where the ones that are out here have had a good enough root system for me to pot it up in my normal substrate and put it out here and see if they're able to handle the ambient and, you know, like grow a good root system to support them. But if after a few weeks, I don't notice enough roots in the pot, like for example, this is my Purple Mystique by Red Vein Dark Phoenix by Eddie Pernotto. And this is a gorgeous plant. Like it hasn't declined, right? It still looks really good. However, in the pot, I just do not see many roots. I see the tip of one root coming through right here, and then it's got one long root right here. And for me, if I've had this out for 3-4 weeks, a month and a half, and it only has 2 roots, it probably needs to go in the prop box. And what I'll do is I'll stick it in the prop box until it has a substantial enough root system to where I'm comfortable to go in and transition it back into ambient. Then once it gets out into ambient, it already has the root system. So it's a much easier transition because it has that healthy root system to support that environmental stressor. Something that I really love about this new substrate that I'm using, so the mix that I'm using right now is tree fern fiber, sphagnum moss, chunky perlite, orchid bark. I mix in a little bit of worm castings and horticultural charcoal, and I also use a little bit of pond as well. So I like to make it really chunky but moisture retentive, which is everybody's goal, right? So with this substrate, because I have the large chunks of sphagnum moss, for me, I feel like it just stays more evenly moist. So the parts that dry out a little bit faster, so for example, if the tree fern is still very moist, the sphagnum moss is drying out a little bit quicker. The sphagnum moss kind of like absorbs the moisture from the tree fern fiber, or I guess vice versa if the opposite is true. And it just kind of like consistently or evenly dries out. And then I can see through the pot whether or not it needs water much more easily than if it was just tree fern, because for me, if it's just tree fern and pond, like it's always dark brown. Yeah, you can tell on the top if it looks a little bit dry, but I'm always questioning, is it just the top that's dry? Should I wait? I'm like very paranoid about overwatering because I've had so much root rot. But this is an example of a plant that definitely needs water. This is my Carla crossed with a purple Yerple from Wild Roots Nursery. And you can see on the top of the soil, hopefully the lighting's good enough in here for you to kind of see. You see how the moss looks more dry? And then through the soil, you can see that lighter color moss versus this is one that does not need to be watered because I just watered this. This is a BVEP crossed with a Red Vein Dark Phoenix. And you see how on the top, the moss is still very dark because it's very damp. And then throughout the substrate, the moss is very dark because it's so damp. So this has really made it a lot easier for me because I can just visually tell much easier whether or not it needs water. Of course, you can also kind of tell once you're like accustomed to your routine and your plants and everything just by weight and like how often they normally dry out, things like that. But I just like that visual confirmation because like I said, I am very paranoid about overwatering because of the root rot. I also really like putting them in these cups because first of all, when the roots grow out of the bottom, they can go into this water kind of like as a reservoir. But second of all, if I don't want to water, like mix up nutrient solution, but there are some plants that look a little dry. I'll just pop this out and I'll use whatever water is sitting in this and use it to water the other plants that look like they need a little bit of a drink. And that's just like a convenient intermediary watering solution. This is kind of bananas. So this is my SKG purple crossed with a red vein dark phoenix, and this is from Midnight Garden. So it is from Hi, who is Hoffmani Hi on Instagram. And this plant, whoo, she is beautiful, and she's dark. So some of the older leaves. Also, do keep in mind the lighting is like not the best in here right now. So it's very, very dark, but it looks like a little overly saturated on the camera. Anyway, so it is very dark. However, it just put out its first leaf for me, which is this one. And oh my good golly gosh, like this plant is so freaking beautiful. And just like the texture, the pillowiness, the fact that it is black with purple veins, I'm telling you, once this plant gets bigger, when it starts maturing, this thing's gonna be, I mean, it's already a stunner, but when it gets really big, it's gonna be crazy. But this leaf is still hardening off. Like it just put this leaf out. It probably has another week or so before that's hardened off. And it already has a fully popped out next leaf. I do not have a single plant in my collection that has grown as fast as this one. I did also forget to mention that I do pH adjust my nutrient solution. So I try to stay between like 5 and 5.5-ish. I haven't not always pH adjusted it, but I do watch, of course, Nick and Corbin's videos here on YouTube, and one of the things that he recommended was like if you're using silica, you really need to pH adjust your nutrient solution, and if you don't do that, you probably shouldn't be using it. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and start pH adjusting just to be safe. And so I do that now, and like I said, I just aim between 5 and 5.5-ish. Sometimes it's a little above, sometimes it's like, I would not say it's normally below, but sometimes it's a little bit above. I just really try not to go all the way up to 6, even though that is normally like okay for plants. Anthurium, from what I understand, tend to like it a little bit lower. This one right here, this is one that I'm fully obsessed with. It is a Zara 33 crossed with a Home Sweet Home from Doc Block. And these are her older leaves. She has just recently joined us from the prop box, because I had to reroot her, which you can see her roots are looking super good now. She put out first leaf that I have seen in my care. So I have not seen this emergent before. Look at how crazy this is. Like it has got these like hot pink veins, but they're kind of like on the rosy side of hot pink versus neon hot pink. Man, this thing is freaking wild. It is so wild. Hopefully you can see on camera. I'm trying to move these other leaves out of the way. How crazy that looks. It did get damaged emerging just because it was kind of like shoved up into the side of the prop bin. But oh my gosh, the top half of that leaf, it just makes me so excited for the next one, because I feel like once I get a full leaf of this, I am just going to go bananas. These are a couple of babies that I'm super excited for. So this is a Cunha PM1 crossed with Dracula. I cannot remember whose plant that is. I want to say it's Rad Roots. If that is not correct, I will put the correct name on the screen. But it gave me its first leaf. I've just started transitioning this to ambient. So normally what I do is I'll either have it in a prop bin or I'll have it in 2 cups. And then when I get ready to start transferring it to my ambient conditions, I'll kind of crack the cup a little bit for a week to kind of get some of that airflow in there. And then I'll put it somewhere like right here, which is getting a lot of humidity from my humidifier to kind of get it used to growing outside of like the double cup. But these were its previous leaves, which just look like your typical seedling leaves. This is the first leaf that it has given me that looks like something else. And I think this plant is going to be absolutely gorgeous. I don't know if you can see how pink those veins are and how pillowy it is, but this thing is just, anything crossed with a Cunha I love. This one is arguably the one that I am most excited to grow out in my collection and see what it turns into. It is from Grant over at Granthuriums, and it is his Smog crossed with Tim Anderson's Stripey. And I know that I've talked about this plant before because I think I put the photo on the screen, but I'm gonna do it again. Smog is one of my favorite anthurium that I have ever seen. This one, the little baby, it had been sizing up really well. This thing was such a vigorous grower. When I transitioned it from the cup to ambient, it just took off immediately. It did not slow down at all. It just kept sizing up, no issues, rooted like crazy. And when it started sizing up, this was its first more mature size, not mature, but you know, like adolescent size looking leaf. And then it gave me this leaf, which is finally starting to look like something. Like the texture, it is very blue, and the texture is so interesting. It's like, it's kind of suede-y, but like a more leathery suede. There's no way that's gonna pick up on camera. But yeah, just the fact that it's starting to really size up, like, I cannot wait. I cannot wait for the next leaf, and it grows so fast, I probably will not have to wait for very long. One of the adjustments that I've made recently, and this is mostly because I have bought several new anthurium that I'm gonna be using for breeding purposes, but just kind of having a surplus of anthurium that are not fully established into my environment yet. Something that I've not heard very often is just adjusting your watering for new plants. And maybe this is just a duh or something that didn't click in the old brain up here. But now when I get new plants, if they do not have a super established root system, or even like if I can't see a lot of the roots on the outside of the pot yet, I water less. So I let it dry out more than I would a plant that has an established root system, because I'm trying to prevent the roots that it has from getting root rot and for it to kind of like stretch its roots out looking for water, if that makes sense. Like I want the roots to be like, oh, it's kind of dry here. I need to stretch out a little bit to try to find some water. And this has been so important for me because normally in my brain, I'm like, especially for the plants that are already established, they don't like to be dry. I err on the side of overwatering, but not like too much because I am paranoid about overwatering, like I said. But I do like to just keep in consideration that anthurium do like to be moister. Also, if they have a new leaf coming out, like an emergent leaf coming out, I water even more on the side of overwatering because they do not like to dry out whatsoever. Well, really whatsoever ever, but if they have an emergent leaf coming out, the fastest way to mess up that emergent leaf, other than touching it too much or accidentally breaking it off or dropping it and breaking it off, which is something that I do more often than I should, is to underwater it because it'll crisp right up. This was kind of a crazy surprise to me. So this is an anthurium Jack of Clubs crossed with Ace of Spades, crossed with a no ID called Willow, and I got this from Ashley's Aeroids, and it is variegated. So the original leaves that I purchased it with, this was one, and I just really like the tone of this variegation. It's not white and it's not yellow. It's more of a creamy type variegation, and there's so many layers of different colors. Hopefully I'll be able to capture that a little bit on the camera here. But it has given me a new leaf. This is another one of the older leaves. It's given me a new leaf, and I did not expect it to come in hot pink for the variegation. The leaf itself is a very, very pink tone anyway, and I'm assuming that's kind of like where that variegation color is coming from. And I'll insert a photo on the screen if it doesn't look very true to color when I'm looking at this, but this one is fairly minimally variegated. However, because of the tone of the leaf, it comes in such a hot pink color, and I just truly was not expecting that. I don't have any variegation on any of my anthurium that come in that more hot pink color. I do have one that's kind of like a baby pink that's in my prop bins that I may be able to show y'all in a little bit, but this was just such a pleasant surprise. I was very shocked to see that hot pink pinking through when I was going and doing my rounds. So I think everyone else looks pretty good as far as water goes. What we're gonna do next is I'm gonna do another once over and just see if there's anyone else that I want to move into the prop bins. And then we're going to go through the prop bins together and see if anyone needs to come out, if anything needs water in there, etc. So I'm gonna relocate and reset up all this lighting and stuff because it is kind of dark in there, and we'll pick up in a second. All right guys, we are in what functions as our game room. This dog, he is going bananas right now because he's mad, like I always say, because I'm talking to you and I'm not talking to him and he's not involved. I also just had a snack and I did not share it with him. Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, no. Were you biting my pillows? Oh my God. When I tell you my reflexes have become so OP since getting him, like Spider-Man's got nothing on me. I'm telling you, Superman's got nothing on me. I could stop a moving bullet. I could. So I did make a decision on some of the plants that I wanted to put into the bins. I cannot remember what this is. I do know that I got this from Planty Weeb on Palm Street. Very pretty plant, does have blister variegation. However, it's just not rooting good enough. So that is going to be going in the bin. We have got this one, which is a blue pap crossed with a Carla. And this one is so pretty, like the venation, how dark the leaf is. However, this is an emergent that just never finished emerging into a new leaf. This is its previous leaf, which looks really cool. It's just, it's super beat up. Definitely had what appeared to be some kind of like mite damage, so I did treat it several times just to be on the safe side. But yeah, she is super pretty. Again, not rooting the best. I do see some roots, but it's just been so long and the amount of time does not line up with the amount of roots that are showing up. So we're just going to put her in a bin to give her a little bit of a boost. Then we have my Panamama 3.0 times a Carla dress. And this is one that got root rot so bad. It literally had like 2 leaves left. But it had this leaf emerging. And it continued to emerge. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to give it a little bit of time and see what happens. And it does have some roots that it's starting to put out on the side. But again, just not enough for what I feel like it needs because it's been struggling so much. So that one, bin. He brought his bone in here. And then we have the one that I was just talking about previously that we want to put in the bin. And then last but not least, we have got this plant from Woohoo Tropicals. It is the Pap Woo 9 crossed with a Carla Woo 2. Beautiful plant. However, it had really bad root rot. Recently repotted it and the leaves just don't feel super great. So I'm going to put it in the bin just to be safe. Anywho, so you see my tower of bins in the back here. We have got this guy on the bottom. It has got the remainder of my corms from that alocasia that I found at Lowe's that I wasn't 100% sure what it was. What did someone comment? I think someone commented it looked like the Infernalis, which it did, but it also looked like a green unicorn. And then I saw somebody post an alocasia on Palm Street that looked exactly like it, and they said it was a green unicorn, so I don't know. However, it did totally melt, so is that surprising from a mistreated alocasia from Lowe's? No, it is not. However, I got, I think like 9 or 10 corms off of it. So I have 3 that I want to keep for myself that I have out on my Vitzjo shelf. And we're going to see what happens with those. And then I have got like 6 more from it in here that I'm probably going to be selling. I just want to make sure that they do kind of like start sprouting before I decided to let those go. And then we have got all anthurium, I believe, in these bins. So I've got this one right here, and then I've got 4 stacked up here, so 5 bins total. And then I have a bin, an empty bin over here that I use as my acclimation bin. Because it has this crack, it's going to be letting more like air in anyway. So I was like, I'm just going to use this as my acclimation to ambient bin. So yeah, so I'm going to go through and just see if anyone needs to come out of the bins. I'm hoping we have at least 1 or 2 that can be transitioned because I have got these 5 that I've got to fit in here somewhere. I'm going to start with the one on the floor. This is the one that I most recently set up. This is actually a bunch of the seedlings that I was previously keeping on the bottom of my Vitzjo shelf. Oh my gosh, I literally cannot say Vitzjo shelf. Vitzjo shelf, not self, shelf. These are the seedlings that I had on the bottom of that shelf, and they were doing okay. They just weren't growing the fastest. And I was like, you know what, like why do I have these out here right now? I can just grow them in a bin and then transition them to ambient later. And I don't even know if I'm going to be keeping everyone, right? So this is what we have set up. So I don't think any of these are probably going to be ready to come out just because I did just put these in here. I'm also going to have to control myself because I cannot show you every plant that's in this bin. However, this is another one that I got from Grant not too long ago. It is an Antilocii RF2 crossed with Debile. Look at that thing. She is beautiful and so pillowy. I'm telling you, anything crossed with Debile, 10 out of 10. Debile, Kuna, I love that pillowy, textured leaf type. Just nothing, nothing hits just like that. Yeah, I do not think that I'm gonna mess with anybody in this one just yet because they've been in there for such a short amount of time. Oopsie daisy. So we will move on to the next one. Okay, we are on to the top, and the freaking tension, every time I take this down, I have this appa up on the top of these because Sully tries to steal it every time he comes in here, and the tension between him and this appa is palpable. He wants it so bad, but you cannot have it. I saw you have a million toys. Okay, we're on to the next bin, and I think we're going to try to transition this one. This is a plant that I got from Rousseau Plant Care, and it is a Barlow's crossed with something. I don't know what this means that I wrote in here. But it's still pretty small, which makes me a little nervous. However, its roots are going absolutely insane. Like, they're sticking up out of the top. I don't know if you can see them, like right here. And this cup is just full of roots. So I think that one will be a candidate to be acclimated. This RG Dressleria has been such a pain in the you-know-what. But man, look how pretty that new leaf is. She is not coming out anytime soon. Okay, this one needs to be addressed because I just pulled it out of the soil. This is from Cartel Dawn, and this is a mutated Forgetii crossed with a Fort Sherman. And it does have some okay looking roots, but some of them definitely have rotted off. So I think I'm going to take this out and just stick it in some sphagnum moss rather than soil. And my little King of Spades finally gave me a new leaf, but it is still growing just even slow for a King of Spades. So I think I'm actually going to do the same thing with this one and just take it out of the soil, stick it in sphagnum moss, and then we'll put it back in the bin. My big black block crossed with SP Napo from Paul over at Understory Oasis. The chonk cutting that I had in here has finally started growing. So we have one leaf, and then it has just put out a new leaf. And I do see a few little roots in there, but I may need to take this out and kind of downsize it. Yeah, I think I will do that. Okay, this one I'm actually going to start acclimating. This is a Gator Bod crossed with Lux from Steve Anthurium, and it almost totally croaked on me, but I put it in the bin and it finally started regrowing. This is its first leaf, and the texture on this, perfect. Perfect texture. Okay, I think that's everyone that can come out of this one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put a couple of these that I want to put in higher humidity in here. And then I'll just kind of resituate the ones that I'm taking out that I'm going to put back in. This one is more of my like chonk bin for plants that some of them I know I want to keep, but some of them I might end up getting rid of. This is one that I'm definitely going to keep. This is a Dresslery cross with a red vein dark phoenix, and it's mutated and variegated. You can't super tell from this leaf. When I had gotten it in the mail, it was in pretty rough condition. All of the leaves died off except for this was the emergent at the time. And this one actually did hang on. However, you can tell it's like not in the best condition. However, you can see how cool the venation and the texture is on it. It did look quite variegated when it had originally come in. You can't really tell now. But we do have a new leaf coming in on this one, and it's looking pretty well rooted in here. I'm definitely going to start acclimating this before too long, but I'm probably going to wait until that emergent comes out a little bit more. This is one that I'm probably going to be selling. This is a Midnight Stranger crossed with a, Midnight Stranger crossed with a Red Vein Dark Phoenix, and this is from Hoffmanii as well, and Midnight Garden. And this was just a prop. I do have the main part of the plant in ambient already. I just repot that one actually, so I think I'm going to see how that does before I let this one go, but this one's absolutely gorgeous. Look at that veining on the back. Beautiful. This lighting is really not the best to show you, but you see how red it is? Like, man, the plants coming out of his shop are just crazy. This is so exciting. This is my Bigfoot crossed with Basilisk from Cartel Dawn, And this was one that had super duper wavy leaves. It was absolutely crazy looking, but it just gave me such a hard time. So I actually just cut off all of its leaves because they were yelling off, stuck it in sphagnum moss, put it in the bin, and it looks like it's starting to grow some new roots, and it just gave me a new leaf. I think this is the second leaf that it has ever given me, and I've had this thing for, I don't know how long, at least a year. I did an unboxing video for this. I feel like last time it was kind of cold. But yeah, that's a very exciting development. I'm not going to be moving this out anytime soon, not until I see like a really substantial root system in here. This is another one that I'll probably be selling. This is a pap crossed with a red spider, crossed with a dresslery, and she is so cute. Do you see how wavy she is? This is actually a prop from that mutated variegated one that I just showed you, the dress red vein dark phoenix, and you can kind of see, maybe, I can see it in person, the variegation on it. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it on camera. But I do have a prop of that I'm probably going to let go. A prop of my King of Spades butterfly that I'm probably going to let go. A prop of my Carla Black Widow Michelle that I'm probably going to let go. I don't know if these are going to be in the first restock, y'all, just because I want to make sure that they are growing out pretty well. This is my chocolate crystallinum crossed with a Carla. I'm probably going to keep that one for a little while just to make sure that my main plant is okay. This is another prop of my Hoffmanni crossed with a red spider from Cartel Dawn that's starting to sprout. That is another one I will let go of. But yeah, I don't think anything in here is going to be able to be acclimated just yet. So we will move right along. Okay, second to last, we're going to be getting into some of the good stuff now. So we have got, just recently I have put this one in here. This is my Carla District crossed with RA8, and it gave me this beautiful new leaf that is absolutely stunning. Love this, 10 out of 10. However, the root growth, I repotted her not too long ago. She did have root rot, and root growth is not the best. So just to be safe, because I do not want to jeopardize this plant in any way, she is in the bin until I see some good roots. This one I got from Steve's Leaves, Anthurium Big Bertha crossed with Woohoo's First Night. And this one gave me the most perfect emergent. It had great root system. And then I dropped it and it just crapped out on me. So I had to cut all the leaves off, put it in here as a chunk, and it has finally given me a new leaf. She is so dark, fusinus. You know, we love a fusinus over here. Ooh, she is so inky. This one I'm absolutely obsessed with, but it is just taking so long to grow back out. This is, I don't have a tag in here, but this is some kind of red spider hybrid. And I still have this terrible looking leaf on here because it's a little bit green, and I wanted to give it, you know, every opportunity that it could to kind of absorb some light. But if you can see this next leaf that it has put out in here, how crazy looking is that? Definitely like a mutated red spider looking. So I have very high hopes for this plant. However, it is just taking so long to root. I do see healthy roots starting to come out and kind of make their way down. And it looks like, let's see, it is moving on to cataphyll even. So I don't know. This one is definitely a confusing one. But man, that new leaf, even though it is stunted, that just looks so crazy. And then I have stuck my Cartel Dawn. This is what, I have several props of this that I'm probably going to be letting go of. This is an Indo Hoffmanni crossed with a red spider that I got from Cartel Dawn. This plant's crazy. This is a total stunner. Also love red spider. I mean, I feel like we all do. It's just been giving me a little bit of a problem recently. I repotted and it has some healthy roots growing, but it's just, the growth is so slow. So I'm going to I'll put it back in the bin for a little while just to see if it would kind of, you know, resituate itself and get a better attitude. And hopefully when we take her out, she'll grow a little bit better. I do feel like this one doesn't get like super large. But I think part of the problem is when I got this import order in, I didn't acclimate them the way that I should have. So I'm kind of paying for that now. This is a pretty one. This is a red crystal blush from All the Plant Babies. That was this older leaf. And again, this one just had root rot. So I stuck it in here to kind of see if it would start growing better. But look how beautiful that is. Sully. Baby bad. Can I help you? So this is all of the imports that I had gotten from Cartel Dawn that I did in the unboxing video recently. I will link it in the description if you're interested in seeing the unboxing for some of these. It's also the imports from an undisclosed source that I made a purchase from that I had a very bad experience with. That resulted in me having to file a dispute with my credit card company. So I will just say that of the import process, of the companies that I have had an experience with, Cartel Dawn is the one that I would recommend. Definitely superior customer service. And this last import that I did, the plants were in phenomenal condition. So if you're going to import and it's not with Cartel Dawn, just make sure you do it on your credit card so that you can dispute it if it doesn't turn out the way that you were told it would. All right, so first of all, this is the variegated Ace of Spades crossed with King of Spades. And this is the one that has like a super baby pink leaf when it comes out. Oh good, you can kind of see it on the camera. That's the first leaf it's given me, so that was like a really nice surprise also. This is just a really beautiful plant. It's got really, really great variegation. And I'm hoping because it does have King of Spades in it, and that is kind of like a dominant plant, that it will have some of that kind of like rigid texture and stuff. I think that would be really cool. My other little variegated baby, the Blue Pap crossed with X1. This one has got more of a minty variegation, and it hasn't done anything yet. I do have a couple of roots starting in the cup, so I think it's okay, but really not much to update on that one. I've also got another King of Spades butterfly in here that has got a much flatter sinus than the one that I have in ambient already, but that one has not done anything yet. We've got one new leaf on the Red Tiger crossed with Self. And then we have got this super nice Red Vein Dark Phoenix crossed with Self that has this really cool kind of subtle variegation to it. Maybe that light behind me will help you kind of see it a little bit more. But very subtle type variegation. I accidentally had this one up against the side of the bin, which it did not like. So that's where the light was. It just fried that part of the leaf. And then I've got two of my other Carlas in here. I've got the Carla that I got from Equigenera that I just put in here just within the last few days. I noticed it was yellowing off some of its old leaves and I couldn't see any roots on the side of the pot, so I took it out and it did have a root rot, which is not surprising because this was an import. Even though it was bought on their Palm Street Live, they are still new, like fresh imports. They just sell them through that live. So yeah, we've got her just in sphagnum moss. Got her acclimating in the bin. And then we have got, this is a really beautiful one. This is a round cross with GPH001 F2. And this is from Grant. This is his Aberrant. How do you say that? Aberrant 1x5. I've never said that word out loud before. I immediately put this in the prop bin just because I did not want anything to happen to this seedling. So pretty. It did give me a new leaf. It is still pretty fresh. And I'm just going to leave this one in here for quite a while until it gives me at least one more new leaf. And then the two plants from that import order that I had a really poor experience with that I'm hoping are going to be okay because they do have like one root growing in here. This is a Mutualist crossed with a red crystal. And I wanted this one just because of the leaf shape, of course. That's very, very unique. She's got a really cool sinus. But yeah, you can see how bad condition all the previous leaves were that came in. It has put out this little new leaf over here. So I'm hoping she will not croak since we do have a new root in here. And that one is like crazy looking. And then we have got this red spider that it has this like weird blistery minty type variegation, and these are what the leaves looked like when I imported it. Now don't get me wrong, when you import anthurium, you're gonna have some damage most of the time, right? But at this point, I'm like, if Cartel Dawn can do it, and the plants arrive so well, then you should at least have like reasonable condition on your plants when I get them. Like every single leaf shouldn't be yellow and all the roots shouldn't be rotten. But yeah, so bad looking leaves for the import leaves. It had this leaf emerging, which did stunt. Did I say what this was? This is like a red spider, some kind of blister variegated red spider. But if you can see, hopefully you can see the variegation on that one. And then this is its newest leaf. Ooh. Oh my gosh, it's literally cupping so hard I can't show you. Can you see it? So it is really cool looking. It does have some good looking roots in here, so I think this one is going to be okay. That new leaf looks pretty good, and it is kind of mutated, which fortunately I'm into that. But yeah, super cool plant. So we are hoping that those will survive. And again, nothing needs to come out of this bin just yet. So I'm going to have to do some adjusting to try to figure out where I'm going to put these other two plants that need to go in here. And then, do I want to do the sulfur treatment today? That is the question. I'll tell you what, I will check back in with you in a few minutes after I finish doing this in here, and we will see if we get to the sulfur treatment today or not. Okay guys, I am back. I'm gonna be doing this portion of the video headless just because this is easier for me to like repot, and now that I have this mic, it makes things much easier for me. You can see here, I still have not purchased a potting mat. But the thing is, the potting mats just don't work in my brain because it's too small and it's too like mobile. And I need something like this that it like gives me more room. It's nice and flat and sturdy. I had this genius revelation one day when I was cleaning, and I was vacuuming near the dog crate, which is where Vash sleeps in. He likes to have his little own space over there. And I was like, whoa, what if I used a crate liner as my repotting mat, because it is, you know, it's solid. Like I can pick this up if I need to. I mean, it's not like super sturdy because it does wobble back and forth, but it's like you could carry something if you're really careful. And also it's just much more room, super easy to clean. So I was like, yes, this is exactly what I want. So this works super well for me. If you find potting mats like too small, this may be a good solution for you. This is actually going to be really quick. All we're going to be doing is I have the 3 plants here that I took out of my bins that need, or that I think need to go into just sphagnum moss, and then I'm going to put them back in the bin. So I have, like we talked about, first is the Cartel Dawn mutated forgetii crossed with Fort Sherman. And you cannot see that. You'll have to take my word for it. This one just came right out, so that definitely needs something going on. The next is my King of Spades, and it just looks crusty and dusty, even though it has a new leaf. Like, I don't know. This just, like, the way that you gently tug on it and see how much movement is happening in there, I don't like that. And last but not least, this is the big black block crossed with SP Napo that I got from Paul Marcellini at Understory Oasis. The reason I'm doing this one is I had previously transitioned, this is the butt cut, I'd previously transitioned the top cutting out of the bins into ambient. And it did well for a while, but because I left, this thing had more roots than I could fit in my house on this plant when it first came in. So I took a couple of cuttings and I left the main roots on each of those cuttings. However, when I went to the top portion of this, where I'm getting at with this, the top portion of this, when I went to repot it, because it was looking kind of funky, all of those roots had rotted off, so now it's back in the bin. So because this was kind of the same situation, I know all of those roots probably rotted off, even though it does have some new root growth in there. So I'm gonna stick it in spag and perlite, just so that it can get reestablished. If you don't, I mean, I feel like this is kind of like a known thing, but if you have issues with anthurium and they've got root rot, they're doing something weird, the roots don't look great on the outside of the pot, they're not growing well, you can always up-pot it, check the roots to see if it has a root rot, clean anything up, clean the roots off, and just put it in a cup with perlite and sphagnum moss. I mean, this is like chunky perlite, which is my preference, but you don't have to use this. You could just use regular perlite, and then put it in super high humidity, like literally just a clear Tupperware with some kind of light source so it can get some light in that super high humidity, and leave it in there until you see super good roots on the outside of the cup. And then you can go through the process of transitioning it back to ambient if you want to grow it in ambient. And because it has that like really good root system, it's going to be much of an easier process for it. So this one, this has already done the work for us. So this is what I expect to find on these other ones, where it has some roots that it has been putting out. Ooh, let me center this. Some roots that it has been putting out in the bin that look pretty good, and then the roots that it had previous to going into the bin, which do not look good at all. This is the one that I've had issues with the entire time that I've had it. So I probably should have gone through this process already. This is actually from that Cartel Dawn order that I said I did not transition correctly, and that is because I did not put them in sphagnum moss first in the bin. I just tried to transition them directly into ambient, and then when they were having issues, I tried to put them in a cup, but I never did the sphagnum moss in the bin, wait until they have really good roots, then transition to ambient, which is like the tried and true method that I found. So we're just taking a step back, and we're doing that now. So that guy is getting done, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and pull this out, and yeah, not much going on root-wise in here. It does have a few roots. Yeah, so you can see where it has put out some roots in the bin that look pretty good, and then we have parts of roots that it had prior to me putting in the bin that are starting to look a little rotty and gross, so that just needs to be cleaned off. And then this one I know is going to be a mess. Okay, yeah, so you can see just this mess of rot that's in there. I mean, we do, again, have good roots, like these white, these green, that's really good. But all of this over here that's like brown and sludgy and just gross looking, all of that needs to be removed. So what I'm gonna do really quickly is I'm just gonna take these over to the sink, and I'm gonna clean the roots off and trim off anything that's dead. And then I'm gonna bring them back over here, and we're gonna stick them in some sphagnum. All right, so we're back with number one, which we can see those rotty roots right here. We're just going to trim those off. Also, anything that's like really stringy. I don't know if you can see how that has this like stringy bit coming off. I'm going to trim all that off too. Alrighty, so that is what we have left for that one. And we have got our King of Spades. Unfortunately, this root did break off. Honestly, it doesn't have a lot of super rooty stuff or super rotty stuff going on. However, places like this that look kind of brown and gross, I'm going to go ahead and trim those off too. Alrighty, and that is pretty much it for that one. This one is the one that has a lot more roots that I'm going to have to remove. So this is the big black block that I was talking about that had a ton of roots when I originally got it. So I'm going to have to clean all of this brown sludgy mess off just to make sure that that rot doesn't continue to spread. If you feel kind of like discouraged by when you get anthurium and they go downhill, or they are just not growing as well, they're looking kind of crusty versus what you originally got them at, and you haven't acclimated them appropriately, that is very common. And it always could be something you're doing right. Like if you're potting it in plain potting soil like Miracle Grow or something that came from a chunky tree fern, pond, whatever, it's probably not gonna like that because it's so dense. But if you kind of know what you're doing, you've got your substrate down, or you feel like you do, your watering habits are pretty good, but that you still notice them kind of declining when you get like right in that period after you get them and they're acclimating, that is totally normal, because they're going to go through that transition period where, again, they're going from probably close to optimal conditions in a greenhouse or in somebody's grow tent or something like that. And if you're trying to grow them in ambient, that's a huge change for them, especially if you pull them out of a substrate and go and repot them in a different substrate. A lot of those roots that were really happy and situated in the original substrate are not going to be happy all mushed up in that new substrate because they didn't grow into that. They just kind of got shoved into it, which is when you get stuff like this where it just rots off. So even though this has been growing in optimal conditions as far as lighting and humidity, you can still see there's plenty of rot going on here. And that is just because when I repotted it into this substrate, all of those little thin secondary roots get all squished up and they rot off. But anyway, so if you notice like rotty stuff or something weird happening, don't get discouraged. Literally just clean them up, you know, get all the rot off, get them potted up into something super airy like sphagnum and perlite, put them in 100% humidity, and give them some time. And I would say like 95% of the time, I have success with anthurium that way. It is there's a very few cases when that has not worked for me. And that is one of the reasons that I love anthurium so much, is for me, it is so easy to bring them back. I mean, it's not like an alocasia or something where when they start going downhill, they've already given up. They have no intention of, you know, accepting any changes that you make to try to stay alive. They have already decided that they are done, and there is nothing you can do to change their mind. Anyways, that is looking much, much better. So we have got some just the nice, clean, good-looking roots left, and all that sludgy crap I'm going to throw away. Alrighty, so what I'm going to do here, we have got our sphagnum moss. The way that I do this, I'm not going to pack this super tight because I don't want them to be super shoved in there. I just want them to be situated enough for their roots to have something like substantial to grow into, but that they can move through easily. So we are going to just put a little bit of sphagnum moss in the bottom, and then I'm going to situate our plant in the middle, and I'm just going to surround it gently with more sphagnum. So I'm going to fill this back in here. And again, I am not packing this down. I'm putting enough in there so that it is like, it's not just flopping around in the cup, but you don't want it to be ultra compacted and ultra tight. So I think this is literally just perfect. So you can see there's lots of, hopefully without that glare, lots of air pockets and things like that, but she's tucked in there nicely. And I'm gonna do the same thing for these other two. I wanted to talk about one other thing that has literally nothing to do with plants. It just popped into my head and I was like, oh, this may put somebody's mind to rest. It's about dogs. So Sully, I have a video on, you know, how we came to have Sully on my channel, and he was adopted from animal control. He is a totally different dog than when we originally got him, which is, you know, not a shocking revelation, right? Like, if you take a dog that ended up in animal control and you give them a loving home, like, they're probably going to come out of their shell and be a different animal. However, when we initially got him, you could tell that he had just never been indoors. So he only wanted to be outside. He was super freaked out by like the TV and the appliances and just like did not know what to do with himself inside. He did not want to be on the sofa. He did not want to be on the bed. He wanted to lay on the floor near the door, and he wanted to go outside. And that was that, because he was clearly not used to being in a house. He was also clearly not socialized. So he has been, for the majority of the time that I've had him, incredibly reactive. I have never had to deal with a reactive dog before. And if you have a reactive dog, or you have experience with, you know, been around someone who has a reactive dog, it is one of the most stressful situations that I have ever found myself in, because when you come across somebody with a reactive dog, obviously the first thing you're thinking is that they are aggressive in some way. Like, if I'm walking my dog, your dog is a reactive dog, I'm immediately going to be worried about, you know, him coming up and like interacting with Sully in a negative way and things like that. So Sully he is a sweet angel baby. I love this dog with my entire heart and soul. However, he's a maniac. So his reactivity was wild. I had no experience with corgis prior to having him, and they are so vocal, is what I have realized. He would literally see another dog. If we would be out on a walk, he would see another person, he would bark his head off. If he saw another dog, he would scream, not even bark. He would literally like jump up at the end of his leash and just screech at them, going frantic, you know, jumping around, just being an absolute maniac. And his mania is a special flavor of mania, I will tell you that. And so I literally had to start just like picking him up and walking in the opposite direction to kind of prevent him from having this insane reaction. And that is just because he was never socialized. Like, he had no experience with interacting with other people or animals. He thought everybody was like a threat to his safety. It was just not anything that he was comfortable with. He had never had that experience before. And we have had him for, I think, 5.5 months as of this week. And he is so different. Let me tell you, I took him for a walk in the park yesterday, and it was the first time he has been able to interact with another dog. He's been doing much better with people, where he's like very waggy and happy, and he's still just very energetic and jumpy and things like that. So it makes me a little bit nervous just because of he's got very intense energy. Like, it's all love. He's a happy boy. He just wants pets and loves, and he's smiling and talking to people and things like that. But also, like, his nails are like freaking razor blades. Like, when he jumps on you, it feels like you were getting stabbed all over. Okay, so that one is done. I just did the same thing, kind of like tucked her in, and she's looking all cute. So anyways, he's been doing much better with people. This is something that I have been well aware of, other than him just having, like, he's being very high energy and me worrying about how people will, you know, receive that, because when you see a cute dog and you go to pet him and they turn into a velociraptor, like a happy velociraptor, but it's still a little overwhelming, right? So it's just something that we have to be kind of conscious of. But much better reaction than him just barking at everybody and thinking everyone's like out to get him. So he's been doing much better with people. We've had several interactions with people that were, you know, they had dogs, they were familiar with the energy, things like that, where he would go up to them and just be wagging and giving them kisses and just like things that I thought he would never be able to do. And yesterday we went to the dog park. Well, let me rephrase that. We went to the park. We went on a walk at the park, and I walk him all the way up to the dog park so that we can watch the dogs from a bit of a distance, just so that he can perceive them, but they're not like all up in his grill. And it's been a little while since we've been able to do that, because it's been so hot, and I don't want to take him out there and walk him when it's really, really hot, because I just worry about him overheating and stuff, because in the South it is like super intense. So we went over there, and he was crying looking at the dogs, which is something he's never done before. He's been always like kind of like on edge and barky. And he was just like looking at them crying. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to walk him over to the fence and just see what happens. And it went so well. When I tell you, like, I am still just in total disbelief that this is my dog that went up to the fence and was like wagging his tail and giving the other dogs kisses through the fence and just like so happy and excited. Literally, I thought that he would never be able to interact with another dog, because when you have a reactive dog, it is just, I don't even know how to explain it, because it's like, in theory, it seems like a stressful experience until you're living in it. And then it is like just this like surreal thing that you have to go through every time, because it's like you have this super loving dog that is wonderful for you. I mean, outside of like the manic energy. Okay, we're gonna push that aside. The manic energy is understood. So he's a very good dog. It's very sweet. You know, never any issues with aggression or anything with us. Very loving. And then he just turns into this totally different animal when you're out in places, and then you have to worry about, you know, how other people. You have to be conscious of other people, right? Like, it's not your world. Like, if your dog's being a problem, that's something that you have to be conscious of, and you have to take care of that interaction. And so it was just like so much, I had so much anxiety just like taking him places and walking him. And, you know, every time we saw a dog, I'd be like, okay, here we go. Get ready to pick him up and run the other direction, because he's gonna be screaming his head off at this poor lady and her 2-pound chihuahua. Like, nobody wants to deal with that. And I feel so bad, because it's like, nobody wants to have to deal with that. And it's just this like crazy thing. So if you have a reactive dog, especially if you have a reactive dog and you've not had them for long, or it's something you haven't dealt with, it gets so much better just with repetitive experience and positive reinforcement. So just a little bit of hope if you're going through the same situation, you have a dog that's recently adopted, you're having issues with reactivity, things like that. Like, I literally thought he would just be like that forever. Don't give up. It's okay. You know, like, things will get better as long as you take steps to try to like improve things, which of course I did. But yeah, just wanted to put the word out there. You know, if you're panicking, if you're a stressy Bessie, if you have got, you know, trauma from having to walk your dog around the neighborhood, it can get better, and it will get better. And then you're gonna have a sweet angel baby like this one, Soli, who does not scream at everybody except for me. I am the sole source of his screaming now. Okay, anywho, this one is done. So all I'm gonna do is take these guys and stick them back in the bin.